We will start with the project introduction, from Kun Christopher Brick, the project leader from CAPC project. And then we will hear the lesson learned, best practice from 4 speakers today. The first one will speak about the zero waste cities in Europe. So we will hear from Mr. Jack McQuibbent, about the best practice from Europe, from several cities in Europe. And then, we will hear practice, from the city of Freiburg, from Mr. Robert. He will speak about the incentive of the reusable takeaway and to-go packaging. That is the upstream approach to promote the reuse packaging as a service. And then, we will come up with the question and answer. After the second break of the question and answer, we will hear best practice from Asia, from the example from India. Today we have Kun Priti Markesh from the Toxic Link India to speak about how the city in India reduce the usage of the single-use plastic. And then we will hear the hands-on experience from NVUs, Mr. Daniel To from Venture Builder. Today, he will share experience, how he developed the business models from the single-use, reuse packaging as a service that is going to implement in Shah Alam, Malaysia. And then we will come up with the question and answer. And at the end, we would like to ask you to provide your feedback of our dialogue series today, and then we will wrap up and closing. That is for 2 hours of today's afternoon. And before we start, I would like to invite you to look at the community of practice that our global projects, Green Tech Knowledge Hub, develop the community of practice for you, to learn and exchange your experience and to voice your ideas about how to reduce single-use plastic at the policy level and also at practice level. And also in this community of practice, you can choose to join an individual community of practice that focus on a different topics, like, for example, the EPR, single-use plastic prevention, organic waste management, and reduction of air pollution. If you are interested, please click to the Green Tech Knowledge Hub.de and then /communities of practice. And we hope that once we have many practitioners like you to participate in this community of practice, we will get together and build up the network of the global. And at the end of this year, we would like to invite the active participants to share knowledge and meet in person in Germany. That is the community of practice that I will share with you later via email. Okay, let's start with the project introduction. May I invite Mr. Christopher Brick, project leader from CAPC, to speak about the project. Please.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Cherry. Good morning, good afternoon from my side, and welcome to this 5th event of our dialogue series. It's almost the last one. We have 6 events in total. Today is the 5th, and I think with a very important and very concrete topic, what the role of municipalities is in single-use plastics prevention. As always, for those of you who are not that familiar with the CAPC project, I see we have 84 people in the room. Right now 85. Let me just share a few information. Okay, we see the screen now of somebody else. Cherry, maybe you can reshare again your screen. I think one of the participants has accidentally shared his screen or her screen. Right. So the CAPC project is funded by the German government, by the German Ministry for the Environment. We run until March 2023, so we have 1 year of implementation still left, and 1 year where now that we have done baseline studies in Shah Alam and Phuket, the 2 pilot locations in Indonesia and Malaysia, in Thailand and Malaysia, are now also starting with a more concrete policy advice on what municipalities can do. So this event today, I think, can also serve as a token of inspiration for this work stream that is now going fully operational. We operate in Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia. And next slide, please. And yeah, in terms of the ambition and the vision, what does CAPC stand for? It really is to support the move towards a more circular economy for plastics, and especially to reduce and prevent single-use plastics packaging, but also single-use packaging overall. And here we see a graph from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that says what is important for this new plastic circular economy, a strong recycling market, a strong reuse cycle, keeping products and materials in the loop for as long as possible, and also useful recyclable design and good production practices. Next slide. And in this regard, also the outputs of the CAPC project are in all 3 countries. We work on giving policy advice on regulatory, economic, and fiscal measures for increasing circularity in and preventing single-use plastics. More concretely, we work on recycled content targets and developing design for recycling standards together with industry players. And advice on single-use plastic prevention policies at local and national levels. And also concretely in the municipalities of Phuket and Shah Alam, we work on setting up new startups, or we support the setup of new startups, new ventures to provide reusable packaging solutions. And we will hear more about that later in this webinar. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this dialogue series is one of our knowledge outputs, where we bring together practitioners and experts passionate about increasing circularity in plastics, and really share the experience from Europe, from Germany and other countries with Southeast Asia, but also the good experiences that are already happening in Southeast Asia. So it's really also a two-way learning. And yeah, I mentioned already, this is the 5th event today on the 8th of February. And I already invite you, if you're interested in the more in the topic of economic and fiscal measures to reduce packaging waste, taxes and incentives, do register on the Green Tech website. It will take place on 12th of May. And with that, I would thank you all for joining this webinar today. And I think I may directly hand over to Jack from Zero Waste Europe on his presentation on how Zero Waste Europe supports cities in Europe on preventing single-use plastics.
Yes. Thank you very much, Christopher. Jack, would you like to share your own screen, or you want me to share?
I will. Where are we? 1 second. Okay. I hope everyone can see this full screen and it's clear. Let me know if not, but yes, good morning from Brussels in Belgium. Good afternoon and good evening to most of you. My name is Jack Procurement. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. It's a real pleasure to see so many attendees and to be able to share our experiences in our work here in Europe with our Zero Waste Cities program, and also to learn from the work that you guys are doing in the Asia Pacific region. And so today I'm just going to sort of explain what we do at Zero Waste Europe with municipalities in Europe, how we encourage them, how we support them to prevent single-use plastic, and show you some sort of best examples and policy recommendations for this, which hopefully you can take to your own context as well. So just to set the scene, Zero Waste Europe, we are a Brussels-based, so here in Belgium at the EU NGO. We're made up of 32 member organizations in 26 European countries now, inside and outside the European Union. Obviously, being based in Brussels, we advocate for ambitious waste and circular economy legislation, but also importantly, we don't just work top-down, we do a bottom-up approach via our members. We help support and mentor European municipalities towards the transition to becoming zero waste, so implementing ambitious waste prevention and reduction policies, one community at a time. And I coordinate our Zero Waste Cities program, where we have over 455 municipalities now who have committed to become zero waste and therefore engaged and being supported to work towards becoming implementing ambitious waste prevention policies and engaging the community throughout this. And this is done, I coordinate it via Brussels, but it's really done via our network of local and national coordinators who are Zero Waste Europe member organizations, and they're the ones who do the day-to-day work of their own municipalities. But now we sort of capture the best practices to showcase, zero waste can be done, the benefits it brings, the way it works in a diverse range of contexts as well. And we sort of model the frontrunners to celebrate and champion the Zero Waste Cities. And in the past year, we've developed the world's first Zero Waste City certification, which is the most robust sort of framework and set of indicators to really help guide and support municipalities, like a to-do list really in terms of what it is to be a zero waste city, and to celebrate and to reward the best practices as well. So this is just an example of what we do in the program. We meet with politicians themselves, we create case studies, host webinars on the best practices, prepare reports about the work that's being done in Europe. And a couple of years ago in the previous life, we used to organize lots of in-person workshop and events to really help municipalities directly get to grips and better understand what their zero waste strategy could be. And hopefully we can do that again soon when the pandemic allows. Some examples we have our most zero waste cities in Italy. And so this is from 2018. Sorry. When it showcases two important indicators here. So it's not only what we call separate collections, so it's the diversion rate of recyclable materials. So for example, 122 municipalities separately collecting over 90% of all of the household and business waste that is generated for recycling. Normally you can the true recycling rate on average is about 10% less than this due to contamination of materials. And so it's really ambitious and showcases how it can be done, but importantly as well, it's not just recycling, it's low waste generation. So we have 353 Italian municipalities who are generating less than 50 kilograms of municipal waste, residual waste, per person per year. And actually, in one of our zero waste cities, we did a zero waste families challenge to support households throughout the year to really reduce their waste. And this came on average, the results were that participating households were reducing 3 kilograms of residual waste, so non-recyclable waste per year. So really impressive results and just showcases that it can be done. And this is just one slide that we use to showcase the benefits, because you see Contarina is a waste management company in Italy. It's responsible for 49 municipalities. It has the lowest fee within the region, but also has the highest recycling rate, and is over 30% higher than the national average. So we showcase this because zero waste is not only better performing, but it's much cheaper therefore as well. So it's a real win-win situation. And of course, so we have not anymore, but Ljubljana was our first European zero waste capital. Now we have Brussels and Riga as well. But you'll see here, since the implementation of the zero waste strategy, there's been residual waste is almost halved. It's halved over. And you'll see here the volume of bio waste has been collected and other separately collected materials throughout the years as well. And this is just simply done via adopting the zero waste strategy that includes collecting as many different waste streams separately from households, supporting this with drop-off centres, focusing on reuse and repair initiatives as well, and really investing a lot in education and awareness raising activities. And so to get to the topic of today's presentation, which I think is obviously why we're here, to discuss what municipalities can do for single-use plastics. The most important thing to set the framework for us in the European Union, we're working within the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which is a key piece of European Union legislation that came into force last summer. And it really bans 10 of the most common single-use plastic items that were found on beaches. So this includes single-use cutlery, balloons, straws, cups, the most sort of problematic items, I should say. And so within this framework, we see that obviously it's the responsibility of national governments, but cities and municipalities are really showcasing what they can do themselves to become plastic-free cities or really take strong measures against single-use plastics. And this includes within a city's border introducing total or even partial bans on single-use plastic. So for example, the city of Paris is aiming to become plastic-free by 2024. And this means not only looking at the second point here, so the city can really eliminate or prohibit the use of single-use plastic in all of its public buildings, cafeterias, canteens, and the events and the spaces that local governments have, and instead making reusable alternatives mandatory. So this is one key option, but cities can also, to become truly plastic free, is to really work with the wider range of businesses and stakeholders in the community.
Excuse me, Jack.
Yes.
Please give me like a few minutes because we have technical problems. Yeah, that our Indonesia participant cannot hear the translation. Let us fix a few minutes, please.
No problem. Just let me know when to start again.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Please, Harry, let me take over quickly. The interpreter from Indonesia, could you mute the MS Team sound? Because the sound from the original channel goes into the translation channel. You have to mute the MS Team sound. Otherwise, the Indonesian participants will hear both English and Indonesian at the same time. Okay. I hope this message gets to you. Okay, so I think it's good now. So okay. I think Jack can continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Let me know if there are any more technical issues. But yes, so basically examples of when single-use plastics have been banned in all public spaces and events, from Barcelona, the capital of Estonia, and Tallinn, the capital of Lithuania, and Vilnius as well. So big cities, and this really has an impact due to the number of events that are organized and the scale of these events as well, because not only are you reducing waste in such a policy, but you also, by doing this, you're engaging every customer or every citizen that goes to such an event and is therefore using reusable alternatives instead. And one of the most important tools at a city's disposal, what they can do, is to really look at the public procurement, the tenders and the services that they have to really enforce the use of reusable products, and prohibit and ban the use of single-use items as well. So we have, for example, the city of Hamburg introduced mandatory green procurement guidelines there, which includes a ban for single-use bottles, coffee capsules, and similar items within all of its public procurement guidelines. Supplementing this, it's really important. Of course, it's not just enough to focus against tackling single-use plastic. You need to provide an alternative that's convenient, healthy, safe, and of course delivers the same quality. And many reuse solutions do today. I think the most important thing a city can do is right at like the start, the framework, is to set targets about the volume of reused materials that they want on the market, or whether it's packaging or in events, or all of this stuff. I think having a key goal, a target to work for, is really key. And so, for example, there's a region here in Belgium, Flanders, which almost covers half of the geographical country, and it set a reuse target of 7 kilograms of all material per person per year being reused within municipal solid waste by 2022. And then this is sort of other ideas is that where it's safe and available to really develop citizens' ability to refill with free drinking tap water, because it's a key thing to tackle single-use plastic bottles. And there is the refill initiative here in the UK, in the EU as well, and there are similar initiatives globally. I think this is really important because it's a small thing to make drinking water much more readily available. You can refill a sort of refillable bottle like this. And it goes a long way to tackling a key single-use plastic item. And of course, cities and municipalities have they're able to introduce financial incentives, provide technical guidelines, legal assistance where possible to facilitate the growth of shops, what we call packaging-free shops. So basically, shops where you can go and bring your own packaging, your own boxes, Tupperwares, and fill them up with maybe food items, fruit, pastas, rice, or it could be cleaning products, liquids, all of this stuff, wine, beer. There are lots of examples of where you don't need packaging, and these kind of shops can offer it in bulk, where people bring their own sort of containers. And I mentioned here about this is the example of Capanary. So it's 3.8 kilograms per capita via engaging with the community and running a zero waste family challenge. So it showcases it really can be done. And if you engage the community in stakeholders in maybe a fun, competitive way, it makes this sort of the initiative much more likely to last and be embedded and to remain within citizens' minds. And one of the key things I wanted to highlight about reuse solutions are deposit return schemes. And maybe most people are aware of these systems already, but if not, it's simply where you put a deposit, so a small fee on top of the price for paying for something, and then that reusable item, whether it's a coffee cup, a food sort of takeaway food package, you then, when you return it, you get that deposit back. And it may be you get the deposit back in money itself, the 5, 10 cents, whatever, or you could get a deposit back with a discount at the shop or another sort of community event. So there are numerous different ways that a DRS can be set up, but it's proven to be the best methodology for achieving results, because yes, you can return items to be recycled, but you can really prioritize items to be cleaned, washed, sort of refilled, and then reused again. And that obviously has a huge impact in terms of reducing the amount of single-use plastic items. Obviously, nationally is where these sort of systems can have the most impact, because you need national borders. For example, people come and go into cities much more fluidly if they're commuting for work or visiting for the weekend. But cities can also be really ideal testing hubs for these systems to work with partners from the business sector and sort of private companies as well to really, test these. And these are some examples. So we have what we call the Billy Cup, where the city of Brussels here supports this initiative, and there are lots of different coffee shops which will take and advertise the fact that you can bring this Billy Cup, which is reusable. So you get your coffee in, say, for example, this shop here in Schaerbeek, drink your coffee, maybe if you're walking, and you can return it to this here and get your deposit back as well. So all of these participating shops. But where, for example, it's not always possible legally or financially to introduce DRS, cities have proven that there is guidance to be provided. You can support where you can to say, okay, we can't technically introduce this ourselves, but we really would advise businesses to do so, and this is the best practice. And I think it's exciting to hear the case of Freiburg after me, because the Freiburg Cup is one of the best examples of this in Europe, and it's been around for several years now about introducing a city-wide deposit return scheme for coffee cups. But so at the foundation, I think this is the key thing to highlight. Preventing single-use plastics requires sort of not only legislation in place to prevent, but also to really to sort of recycle any plastics that can be recycled, but to collect reusable materials. And I think this is the key thing. We're not just focusing on recycling, but also to focus on reuse. And so in Europe here, we have door-to-door collection, but it's also the system is tailored in the Asian context. For example, our partners at Gaia, Asia Pacific, work with 55, 60 zero-waste cities across Indonesia, India, the Philippines as well, many countries there, to showcase how this can be done. But for example, you want to separate as many waste streams as possible, because this means, for example, the whatever plastic that can be recycled, if you're separately collecting organics, that plastic or that paper is less likely to be contaminated with food, and therefore is of a high quality, which you can then recycle or reuse. More importantly, again, economic incentives. So in Europe here, we have these pay-as-you-throw systems where citizens will pay a fixed fee for their waste, normally per year. But the pay-as-you-throw system would say, okay, 60% or 70% of that will be fixed, but the rest will be variable depending on the amount of waste that each household generates. So if you generate low levels of waste, you'll pay less in your waste fee. And this can be done in numerous different ways, but ideally you sort of individualize it household to household. So each time you put your bins out or your waste is collected, is measured and weighed then and collected in a central system by the city or the waste management company. And it's really important. Next is when you're focusing on, when you're trying to introduce much more reuse items or recycling culture, is that you allow and invest in quality collection or sort of drop-off points where citizens can bring their reusable, recyclable items and say, the drop-off points are, they're in a convenient location within the city. They have protection from the weather, pollution, animals, all of these things that can really sort of reduce the value and the quality of items. As I mentioned, lastly, organics is key. It's we're talking about single-use plastics here, but if you're separately collecting organics, it has a huge benefit for the entire system as well. It not only creates much more awareness about the need for separately sort of recycling and collecting items. As I mentioned before, if you're taking food waste and organic materials out of the residual waste or out of the other bins as well, you're really increasing the likelihood of items that can be reused or recycled. And so it's complementary to not, you can't only just say we're going to ban single-use plastic items because it's embedded within today's economy and culture. You need to offer sustainable alternatives that help people show, really support them on their journey towards more of a reused lifestyle. And finally, I think these links will be available via the presentation links, but there's lots of examples here about cities that implementing what I mentioned at the start, the Single-Use Plastics Directive here, the benefits of reuse systems. This is a really useful policy paper. It showcases how reusable coffee cups and items are sort of ranging between 13 to 4 times better for the environment, looking at greenhouse gas emissions in the life cycle. The fact that many single-use plastic items, I've not spoke about it today, but they're really full of harmful chemicals as well, so we're putting ourselves at risk by using these items. And then, of course, this is a really useful resource for mapping a wide range of best practices in Europe for reducing and phasing out single-use plastic items. So that is me done. Yes, like I said, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. My email is there for any questions or follow-up. And I wish you all the best for the remaining series and happy to answer any further questions maybe that come up after the next presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, Jack. Yeah, I think, we learn a lot from you and participant and us, especially me. Yeah, go to the tour with you to many cities in Europe. Yeah, and we realize that cities play crucial roles in order to reduce the single-use plastic. Yeah, thank you very much, and please stay with us. Yeah, and then we will have like question and answer. Yeah. Okay, next, may I invite the representative, the speaker from city of Freiburg from Germany, Robert. Yeah, could you please come in?
Yes, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to share our experiences from Freiburg. Today I'm going to present the example how we deal with single-use food packaging in our gastronomy sector. So it's a bit similar to what Mr. Kibian already presented about the Billy Cup. I will give you a quick overview about the city of Freiburg, how our waste situation looks like, and then I go into the example of our Freiburg Cup, which what we consider a pioneering project, and then how we upscaled that into a Freiburg Cup 2.0, if you will, and then we can talk about the main takeaways from the example of Freiburg. So as you might know, Freiburg is located in the southwest of Germany, close to the Black Forest, and it's an important economic hub in the southwest. We have 230,000 inhabitants. For Asian cities, that doesn't seem like much, but for Germany, that already is considered a metropolis. And Freiburg is very popular due to its weather and high quality of life. So we have the fourth biggest population influx in Germany, and are also relatively affluent in terms of GDP per capita from our big sector and health industry. We are also a university city with a big student population and have around 3.2 million overnight stays of tourists per year. And Freiburg is considered a green city since it's one of the birthplaces of the of the German environment movement in the 70s. Which is rooted in the anti-nuclear movement. And that means that our population or our citizens have an above average environmental awareness, which I consider a very important frame condition for our waste management. So we have one of the highest density of organic shops in Germany. We have well above average farmers markets, 19 in our city, and there are numerous NGOs, local NGOs, and citizen movements that work on environmental issues. This also translates into the policies of the city council. We have a very ambitious climate protection plan with 6 different strategic fields. Where I'm responsible with my colleagues for the climate-friendly lifestyles that we would like to foster and to enable. So our motivation is to not only be a role model as a public administration, but also to provide the frame conditions for our citizens to have the right environmental behavior, and also to support their efforts to fostering grassroots movements. And if we look at our waste accumulation, so we are not a zero waste city yet. We are not part of this network, but the city of Freiburg has signed the Circular Cities Declaration from the ICLEI network in 2020. And in our private households, we do not consider waste a problem at the moment, because we have a well below average residual or non-recyclable waste collection, which is 111 kilograms per person per year, compared to the German average of almost 200 kilograms. This is due to a very strong waste separation. So that was already mentioned. It's key to separate the waste streams, and we have a paper bin waste fee. So what do we consider a problem? That's an increasing waste tide since 2016 in our public bins. And this is due to mostly takeout and to-go food from inhabitants, commuters, and tourists. So in addition to our 230,000 inhabitants, we have around 100,000 in and outbound commuters per day, and an important number of tourists. So this food packaging is high in volume but low in mass, and takes up a lot of space, and we can attribute it to be coming from mostly the more than 1,000 gastronomy businesses that are registered in our city, and we do not have an informal gastronomy sector like it might be the case in other cities. So this is the problem, the overflow, almost 12 million single-use cups per year in Freiburg, and those are the single-use food packages that you're probably well aware of. So as I already said, from all the single-use plastics waste we find in the public bins, we can attribute 78% coming from our gastronomy. And so what we did in 2016 was to start our own deposit cup. It looks like this. It was initiated by our municipal waste management service. And it was the first municipal system in Germany. How did we do it? We integrated our gastronomers, the stakeholders, to roundtable discussions for the design and the needs of the system. And then we produced, or we ordered the cups on our own, and we had staff to manage the whole process and are handing out the cups only for the deposit, so there is no system fee that any gastronomers have to pay. The result is that we got a local public pooling system from this, starting with 14 participants in 2016 and growing to 130 shops in 2021. And by now there are 130,000 Freiburg cups in circulation that could be used around 400 times. The challenge that we noticed is that we do not reach these 400 theoretical uses, because many of the Freiburg cups, they end up in cupboards or a souvenir for tourists. So they are heavily underutilized. And we noticed a very little public bin waste reduction. So we think this is due to the characteristic of the local system. You can only get the Freiburg cup in the municipality. But as I already mentioned, we have 100,000 commuters and a lot of tourists. So the system doesn't make sense if it ends at the city border. The gastronomy doesn't have any costs from running the system, but we as a municipality have, and we are not a manager or a packaging producer, and so we want to hand it over or migrate the system into private hands. And for now, we only had cups for drinks, but no food packaging, which are also very important in terms of volume. Sorry.
Sorry, Robert. Yeah, it is my mistake. Yeah, could you please share your slide?
Oh, sorry. Didn't you? I hope you saw my slides, or did I?
It just disappeared. Yeah, could you share it again? Okay. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
So with the Freiburg Cup, we had a pioneering system, and then we noticed other cities also followed in our footsteps, which is very good development. But this is what it looks like for our Freiburg Cups in the municipality or the participating shops. Even though other cities also create their own cups, like the Billy Cup, we think we need to go a step further and find a bigger or a more universal system. So since we started with the Freiburg Cup, there had been some changing frame conditions that helped us a lot. We already learned about this today. The EU directive on single-use plastics banned the production of 10 very common single-use products within the European Union. And the national government also created a reform of the German packaging law that obligates gastronomers to offer multi-use food packaging from next year on. So this gives some hard incentives from EU and national level that we as a municipality have no control over, but that support us a lot. And also there are new national anti-waste campaigns that provided us with information that we could use in our work. And the third frame condition that changed is that we have now a lot of startups and private businesses that create their own reusable packaging systems. So we as a city don't have to create our own cup and design. There are now better solutions available at the market. So what we did last year, we initiated a participatory selection process to hand over the Freiburg Cup into private hands of one of these 6 companies. And our objectives were, we wanted to have cups and food packaging to scale up what we have now. We wanted a super regional or national system so that doesn't end at the municipal border. And we want business to business relationships so that we as a municipality are out of the picture. To do this, we started a market research and negotiated with the companies that we could find for some good conditions if we help them to get the market access here. And we exhibited all their products. Then we had a survey about the needs and requirements of our gastronomers that are very diverse. And we had 2 roundtable discussions where we invited all the registered businesses, but got a very low participation rate of 20 to 30 shops that actually chose the new system with us due to the Corona pandemic and other problems that gastronomers currently face. So what we noticed with these stakeholders is that costs and simplicity are key if you want to convince them of changing to multi-use packaging. And so what we found is that we made a cost comparison with some assumptions about how much they sell to go. And then we compared that to single use, which creates 1,600 to 3,500 euros per year in costs for single use packaging that is handed out and thrown away. And we can expect that these costs will go up due to the European Union ban and other increase in costs due to taxes and fees. So the 6 companies we selected, they have a pay-per-use or a subscription fee business model or payment model for the gastronomers. So Recycle, Relevo, and Vital, they are pay-per-use. So whenever a shop hands out a cup or a bowl, they register with an app that they did that, and then they pay a small fee of 8 cents to 20 cents to the company for using their containers. And the subscription fee is a bit different. So you pay a monthly fee to be part of the system, and then you buy the containers for the deposit costs, but you have a guaranteed resell. And those costs are usually a bit lower or much lower if you have a high volume of purchases. So the result is now we have a national private pooling system in Freiburg that we endorse as a municipality since November last year. They have 3 cup sizes and 3 food containers and around 9,600 participating shops in on the national level. And we gave out 6 incentive packages for first movers. So shops that would change to the new system got a financial bonus for doing so. And by now we have 93 participating shops in Freiburg, but we are yet to see if it becomes a success, since the burden of costs shifted to the gastronomists from us. So this is what it looks like in Germany and Freiburg at the moment. And yeah, I would like to conclude with what I think are very favorable starting conditions that helped us here in Freiburg. First one was that the interests across the administration departments were quite aligned. So we from the Environmental Protection Agency want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and the Public Waste Service wants to reduce waste volumes and costs. Then we have very environmentally aware citizens that are used to waste separation, that already know deposit schemes, and that have their own interest in environmental issues. And the city council also has a long tradition of supporting environmental policies. And then we could use the experiences from the Freiburg Cup for this participatory process of integrating our stakeholders. And at the same time, we had this pressure from national and EU level to have mandatory to use reusables mandatorily by next year. So we could offer our stakeholders a helping hand to adapt to the new legislation. At the same time, there are many good solutions from the private sector available that we can buy in, so we don't have to invent our own system. And what we hope to see is that the reusable packaging becomes a kind of a currency system. What I mean by that is that the containers will just disseminate within the municipality and get switched in between the food shops by themselves. The challenges we had is that the gastronomers had other problems at the moment, so the participation could have been higher. And at the same time, we have very diverse gastronomers. So we have a lot of sit-in restaurants, then we have market stands, small kebab shops. They all have different needs from what we learned in our discussions with them. And now a minority chose a system more or less for everybody. So we have to see if everybody adapts it. And I already mentioned the shifts of costs. And we are also wondering if voluntary incentives that we provide as a municipality, like the stimulus package or incentive package, is enough, or if we need more regulation, like a packaging tax that other cities in Germany are currently experimenting with. So to start the discussion, I would like to ask you what you think would work for you if you have similar beneficial frame conditions, or if you think you need more support from your national level, whether you can manage these processes, or what do you think would be a good solution for your context? And final remarks from my side would be, from our experience, it was very good to show the alignment of interests among all stakeholders, and to really support the existing bottom-up initiatives, and to exchange with other municipalities how they run their processes, and to learn from their experiences. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and please do not hesitate to contact me if you have further questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert, Mr. Robert Janraj and Mr. Jack McQuippens. Yeah, participants, please join me. Yeah, to give hands to both speakers. Okay, yeah, and it is time, yeah, for us to ask questions. Yeah, and we have around 10 minutes for question and answer. Yeah, if we not finish this round, we will take carry over to the next round. Okay, yeah, for the question, yeah, my colleagues have already collect some questions. Yeah, let's get into that. Yeah, one by one.
Because we were informed that Mr. Robert has to leave for his next meeting, so I put his questions first. Okay, and then we'll follow by Jack, if that's okay.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
here we have the question to Robert. Okay. I haven't seen the question for Robert. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, and in the chat I can see the question. Would you say that the mandatory legislation, single-use plastics bans and mandatory reusables, is the most important pillar to mainstream reusables? That's a good question. The experience we made here at the local level in our municipality is that incentivizing in terms of finding cooperative solutions works very well in the long run. But I think mandatory legislation is very important. So I don't think we can solve the whole problem without it, because we also got some feedback from individual stakeholders that told us if we don't have to do it, we will not do it, because it's an additional burden to change into a new system. And so, yeah, there are no incentives. And this is why also other municipalities in Germany are discussing whether they should introduce a single-use tax or something like that.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I hope the answer is already fine with participants. And the next question is to is from Mr. Tobias. Yeah, it's about
we made the experience that local chains like bakeries, regional bakeries, they participated in the system and they thought it's a good idea. But the bigger brands, they have their headquarter somewhere else, and they manage everything on a national level. So they didn't want to participate. But I think that the market solutions from the companies that are now developing, that they might provide, or that they are attractive enough since they're available everywhere.
okay. Yeah, and the next question is from Siddharth. Yeah, in terms of the regulation, legislation.
Yeah, the most efficient way on ensuring high return rates for reusables. So if we look at the, I'm not sure if you mean the household waste in general, so all the waste streams, or only the example I presented today with takeout packaging. For takeout packaging, the feedback we got from the companies we were in contact with is that usually deposit schemes like we have here do not have such a high return rate if the people are not used to it, or if it's not broadly available. So we think it's good to have a lot of participating shops in one system, so it's comfortable for the consumer to bring it back. And other companies, the ones using pay-per-use schemes, they usually have apps where they don't deduct a deposit, but they send you regular reminders to bring back your cups or other containers. And if you don't do it, then you pay like a little fee. So they claim to have very high return rates.
Okay, and the next question, yeah, in terms of the legislation from the city of Freiburg, yeah, do you think that, yeah, is it the most important pillar to mainstream this reusable model?
Yes, I think it's an important, maybe not the most important, but a very important pillar.
Yeah, thank you. Because yeah, Germany has like a legislative framework already, right? The German packaging law.
Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Yeah, because of the Germany has already the German packaging laws. That is why the city of Freiburg, yeah, can issue the legislation. Is that the fact?
Yes, yes. So we benefited from the national mandatory regulations that, and if we wouldn't have that, we couldn't do it on our own, basically. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the next question from Kara. How long is typical to the zero waste cities in Europe from starting the single-use plastic prevention program until they notice effects? And I think this question, yeah, go to Mr. Jack.
Yeah, it's a good question. There is no set timeline at all. Basically, taking action on single-use plastics could be the first step towards becoming a zero-waste city, or it could be the first step of a zero-waste city. It's, you know, there is no pathway. We have a framework, a zero-waste city framework, but it needs to be tailored and differed for each local context. And so this is why you need to understand data about what is not recycled, what is the biggest waste streams, what current levels of awareness and information do citizens have, what policies and sort of power does the city or the municipality have to change things. All of this data you need to collect first, and then sort of, okay, build a zero waste strategy from that. And so, for example, all often we see here in Europe, and Freiburg is a good example of this, places that have high levels of tourism struggle maybe with different waste streams to cities that have lower levels of tourism. Single-use plastic, for example, like food takeaway, packaging, coffee cups, all of this stuff. And so you need to adapt the framework of a zero-waste city to this context in particular. I think it comes back also to a couple of questions that I saw in the chat about how often to collect organics or how often separate collection. And again, it completely it depends on the local context. And so, for example, whilst we don't have many tropical environments in Europe, in Southern Europe in particular, it's very hot climates. And so collecting organics is not, if not done daily, every other day is very important, but you help offset costs in the system because you're collecting the residual waste much less every 2 weeks, for example, once every 2 weeks or even less than that. And so, and you're supplementing particularly organics if you're trying to get people home composting or community composting a lot more. And so the smell, the organics is not in a home or not in a building, and so therefore is less of an issue. But yeah, so basically that's a long way of saying it depends on the local context and the needs of the city, their ambition. But single-use plastics, tackling that is an important first step towards becoming zero waste. You sort of take out some of the easiest, most common found items, replace them with reusable alternatives where you can, build awareness, education within the sort of the wider community, and then you can really start to build from there in terms of year upon year, reducing total waste generation, increasing reuse and repair initiatives, and working with businesses as well to really tackle this issue at a more systemic level.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Jack. And the next question, yeah, is from Arthur. These interesting good examples summarized in the report that can be widely spread. Yeah, I think this question go to you, Jack.
What was the question? Sorry.
The question is about the report. Yeah, can participants receive the report that can review the case study?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. So basically, let me type in my website into the website of the Zero Waste program into the chat here, which is where you'll be able to find all of the reports and case studies, information that I mentioned as well. We do actually have a case study on the Freiburg Cup, but it's from 2016, 2017, I think. So be interesting, Robert. Maybe we should chat and get some more data. But yeah, so lots of information can be found on that website as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, everybody, yeah, I think you can see the link of the website from Zero Waste, yeah, in the chat box. And the last question, yeah, for this round, yeah, is it from Sid? Yeah, there is 2 questions. One of the questions raised by our partner in Asia is how to set reuse targets and what is required in order to set realistic targets and measures the progress.
Yeah, it's not easy at all because you're really sort of beginning to look at the wider material flow and consumption within a society that is outside of the immediate direct jurisdiction of a city. But I think the first important step is getting as much data as possible in terms of what is the total waste generated by citizens and businesses, and therefore looking at, okay, what percentage of this could be reused or recycled, and then once you have that weight, that volume, the total amount, and then you can disaggregate it, looking at per year, per citizen. You can use that to really set realistic targets as well. And so whether that's kilograms of material put on the market that must be reusable, or a certain amount of reusable items collected and prepared for reuse. This is also a common target that we see. So municipalities like in 2023, we want to ensure that we have 1,000 kilograms or items of reused items prepared for reuse at our center and then sold on. So or this could be 200 computers prepared for reused, 50 bikes, whatever. There's lots of different ways and items, and it depends on looking at the data from the local context. What is the most important things to tackle first? Which items that could be reused are not, they're being wasted most commonly by citizens, and so it will differ from city to city depending on what the needs are. But I would say creating that baseline situation of data analysis about the whole city is the most important step for reuse, but also in general for policy making, I think, to becoming zero waste, because you know where to go, what the priority areas are, and you can really inform better policy making throughout the whole city.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and Robert, yeah, I know that you have to leave. Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes.
But thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And yeah, I wish you all the best for your work. And yeah, let's stay in touch. And I'm keen to see what becomes out of this. Okay.
Thank you very much. And your presentation
Bye-bye.
is very inspiring. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Okay, yeah, I think it's time. Yeah, thank you very much, Jack. Yeah, and I think that you can help us to answer your question in another round. Yeah, and this time I would like to invite the next speaker. Yeah, to make a presentation. Yeah, about the city in India. Yeah, please join me to welcome Mr. Priti Marquez. Yeah, he is chief of the program coordinators from Toxic Links India. I'm sorry, Miss Priti Marquez. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for this invitation to speak in this forum. I'm sure I will be able to share my learnings and experiences, but also learn obviously from experiences shared by other speakers, and also I think the participants also have been working in this field, so they also have a lot of knowledge regarding this. So I hope to learn a lot during this interaction. I'll just share my presentation. Give me a moment.
Thank you. We are excited to go to India. It's like today is like a tour that we take participants to Europe, India, Germany, and then Malaysia.
Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Could you put in the presentation mode, please?
It is in the presentation mode.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, is that fine?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, please start.
So what I would today in the next 15 minutes is try and share, some learnings from single-use plastic, restrictions or limits which have been put in India. It's a bit difficult in 15 minutes because India is a vast country, obviously. But a couple of case studies that I would like to share. Just first of all, I would introduce the organization that I represent, which is Toxics Link. It's a not-for-profit organization. We are basically a research and policy group engaged in the field of waste and chemicals. Apart from waste issues like batteries, biomedical, electronic waste, we've been working on the issue of plastic for a very, very long time. And we are part of international networks which are working very, very closely on some of these issues, especially on plastic, both in terms of waste management or the pollution, and also about the toxicity part of it. If we take a quick look at where India is in terms of single use, especially at the policy aspect, from July 1st, 2022, ban on single use items come into force in India. This is across all states in India, and this ban is on select items. So there have been some items which have been selected, mainly looking at things like straws and plastic cutlery, balloon sticks, some wrappers. So those items, they are which are meant to be banned from July 1st, 2022. This is again in a phased manner. There is another restriction which comes into force in September 2022, which is on the thickness of the plastic bags. So plastic ban is not completely banned, but the microns are getting, we need to have thicker and thicker bags. It was 50 microns now, and it'll go up to 120 in September. But that also brings in some bit of challenge because after this, any revision, I think there's a time period of 10 years before any revision will happen to that. So that's where our current regulation is, which is at the national level. But we do have a lot of regulations at the state levels, which are smaller units, and each state is done its own restrictions in terms of plastic, especially single-use plastic. The local governments in almost 29 states and 7 territories, half of these states, I think about 21 states have banned polythene bags or plastic bags, and many states have now started banning single-use plastics as well. Obviously, as I said, the shopping bags is the most common one. It's, I think, around 20 or 25, I think, which have banned already the polythene bags completely, not just the thickness, but complete ban on the polythene bags. They also, certain state governments are now trying to shut down factories, trying to ban imports. So these are at the state level, these actions have been taken, and it differs state to state. So the kind of ban, the mechanism for ban, as well as the items which are banned are different in many of these states. So there's no harmonized system. The harmonized system would come into force, as I said, the national ban on single use, which comes into force in July 2022. So if at a national level, a lot of companies which are operating, it becomes very, very unclear in terms of what is exempted, what is banned in which state, because the state borders are very fluid, which means from one place to another, you can take things in plastic. So even if there is a ban in one particular state, but if you're going in from one to another state, you may be able to carry plastic in certain cases. So with this fluidity, it becomes very difficult to implement regulation in many of these states. And also, obviously, there has been a lot of resistance from the industry side. So whether it's the manufacturers or people who are dealers, who are retailers, who are selling these So there have been a lot of resistance which the government has been facing. So in a nutshell, if you look, this is the ban that we are looking at. So you see most of the India is covered with some sort of plastic bans on certain plastic items. So some of the examples which I'll share, which is on the state ban. So this is in Maharashtra, which is a state in the western part of India. And has, Maharashtra has the financial capital, Mumbai, as its headquarter, which is one of the, kind of largest city in India. And it has a ban on all kinds of single-use plastic products like spoons, cups, straws. So this is much before 2022 regulation comes in. They banned it in, I think, 2019. And it has imposed heavy fines or heavy penalties for any violation of the ban. So anybody who is found to use single-use plastic the items banned under this ban would be fined around 5,000 for the first time, second time offenders 10,000, and then 25,000. So it kind of progressively gets worse, and this is seen as disincentive, or this is being used as disincentive for citizens, especially, to not use plastic. And also the state in the last 2 years, has recorded about 40% reduction in the plastic uses. So that's kind of huge in a state which is, it's quite large. And if there's a 40% reduction, that means there is, enforcement on ground. If you look at another state which is in the western part of the country, Odisha, it has also introduced a phase-wise ban on single-use items, and especially in these 6 cities, which also includes one coastal, city of Puri, which is, kind of a tourist spot as well. So there is a plan to move towards a complete ban in next 2 years, but it's done in a phase-wise manner. Again, violation invites heavy fines and also 5-year jail term. So, so even for retailers, dealers, these are considered as a very strong stick approach, to implement the ban. So even Odisha has, seen quite a bit of reduction in the single-use plastic usage. Though there are no numbers, kind of available on how much it has reduced by. But there've been instances where markets have been raided regularly. The fines have been imposed. So you'll see about 1.4 Indian national rupees that has been, kind of taken from shopkeepers who were using single-use plastic, and also, seizing that. So these regular raids have been seen as a positive, kind of enforcement tool. Another state, which is the largest state in India, Uttar Pradesh, which has also seen a phase-wise ban on single-use. And for right now, there is a lot of ban on polythenes and some single-use items. Anybody who's found, again, there is penalty. But one important bit in the UP ban is to see also that there is a, effort to promote alternate. So there is, a pottery board has been set up to revive earthenwares and pottery, which could replace certain single-use items. So there has been, the government or the, kind of the pollution control board is trying to, make the alternates feasible by supporting that, and also, kind of promoting them. So there is, if you also see the amount of fine, which is 2.32 crores in Indian rupees, which has been collected for violation of single use. So, fines or penalties are being used as a key, I would say, tool to implement single-use ban. I would just present 2 case studies in terms of 2 cities, in India, which are implementing single-use plastic, or 2 areas, I would say, not just cities, which are implementing single-use ban, and this is ahead of the national regulation. One is Nilgiris. Nilgiris is a biodiversity hotspot, and because of plastic, it was getting ecologically damaged. You can see the picture. It is a very scenic location, and this is one of the kind of most popular tourist location as well. So in spite of a lot of effort, since there was so much of influx of tourists, the place was getting a lot of leftover plastic waste from these tourists' activity. So that changed or begin its slow change process in 2000, around 1999, 2000, when the administrative officer, which is the collector of this particular district, Nilgiris, actually, kind of started speaking to the citizens and, the industry to start phasing out single-use plastics or the plastics as an overall material as well. That was kind of after his successor, kind of in 2001, made it a full campaign mode. So there was full campaign to start making Nilgiris as a plastic-free zone, plastic carry bags, kind of cups, and some of these related items like cutlery were banned in Nilgiris. So this was, we are talking about a national ban in 2022, but this was in 2001 when this process started in Nilgiris. And in 2018, this ban has been extended. So use and throw plastic cups, plates, plastic and foil-lined paper, spoons, forks, straws. So there's a quite a list of items which have been banned in 2018, well ahead of national ban. And if you look the kind of strategy that they've kind of involved, one bit which we need to learn from the Nilgiris experience is that there has been a lot of powerful initiatives and support from the administration. So from the very beginning, the administrative or the government bodies have taken a very, very active role and also involved stakeholders. So it was, these decisions to ban the kind of items, how to ban, everything was taken in consultation with the stakeholders involved. It was not an independent decision forced on people, and which was a very, very critical thing. Basically, the measures, included, as I said, involved. Sorry, have I? Are you able to see the screen?
No, now it's all gray.
It is disappear. Okay, it's back.
Oh.
Yes, this gray box is a bit weird, no?
Sure. Okay. So yeah, so as I said, this was not an arbitrary imposition, but it was done with cooperation of the citizens. There was a lot of awareness done through powerful image, use, like cows eating plastic. So those images were used by the administrator or the administration to show people the impact of plastic. There was Green Brigade, which was kind of created using mainly the school students. These were volunteers who were checking on people littering on plastic, stopping people to check if they were complying with the bans. Also, the government, worked towards providing people with alternates. So there was support which was given, to women's self-help group and old people to, make jute bags, shopping bags. So these initiatives were very, very welcomed by the people there, and along with strict implementation and public fine, it became very, very clear that this Nilgiris was headed towards plastic-free zone. In 2019, it's gone a step ahead. It's put a ban on plastic bottles as well. So, all merchants in Nilgiris have stopped using sale of bottled water and soft drinks. So anything in the cans and glass bottles are allowed, but plastic bottles have been banned. But kind of a ban would obviously not work because this is a tourist place and people need water. So the ban has been supplemented or supported through a 70 water ATMs which have been installed. So this is the effort which is kind of thought of in terms of going hand in hand, and that is the reason why it's working very well in Nilgiris. There is a check which is happening at the border. So if you're entering Nilgiris the region, you have to declare what plastic you have, and if you have the banned items, you will have to pay fine, and the items will be also confiscated. So this is the kind of effort that the Nilgiris have put in to make their city plastic free or area plastic free. Another example, very good example of kind of plastic being banned and phased out is in Sikkim, which is a really pristine and one of the kind of beautiful locations in the northeast of India. Again, a very big tourist spot. And the state, in fact, has become one of the leaders in environmental movements. It's one of the first states to become organic, fully organic, and also to ban plastic. So the decision has actually come completely from top. 1998, Sikkim was the first state to ban the plastic bags. So there was a complete ban on plastic bags. And if you can see the image itself, people, giving food items in leaves, in paper. So the food items are being wrapped in these alternates instead of, a plastic or, thermocols and items like that. So there has been a phased approach. 1998, the bags were banned. In 2016, styrofoam and thermocol plates, cutleries, all these items were banned in the states. There is a ban now on single-use plastic bottles from 2022 New Year. So from January, plastic bottles have been also banned in this small state. It is a very, very small state, and that's one of the main reasons why the implementation has been very, very, very successful, in comparison to other places or other states. Again, a lot of multi-pronged strategy, penalties, state-level policy, and mass awareness. So they've been, promoting eco-friendly bamboo bottles as a replacement for plastic. They're encouraging villagers to mass-produce these bottles. So there is a creation of livelihood. There is stick implementation and penalty for violations. There is a continuous check, and I think that's one bit that we learn from some of the cities where that's not working as well. For example, in Delhi, which is where I sit, and kind of the national capital, there has been various points where plastic bags have been banned, but it's been not effective because the monitoring or the continuous check happens only for a very small period and then it stops. But then learnings from places like Sikkim is that there is a need for continuous checks on these, and there has to be penalization, a regular penalization, which dissuades other people as well. So there's a major change. If you see 66% of shops in Sikkim now use paper bags or newspaper. There is still some users of plastic bag, especially non-woven, because that was being at some point considered that that's not plastic. There is now awareness that that's plastic as well, and that's why there is again movement to try and move away from that as well. But then Sikkim has been able to eliminate a lot of plastic. One or two other key examples I would, or key measures that I would want to share that some people have taken in Tamil Nadu. They've gone back to a really an old tradition where people used to carry yellow cloth bag for the market, and so that movement has started, which is called Meenadam Manjai. So it's basically the yellow cloth bag campaign. It's again planning to make modern school bags out of jute, so that the jute as material kind of becomes popular and plastic is phased out. A lot of self-help groups being made to make these alternate products. It's also, kind of a very, very systematic approach that Tamil Nadu has taken to try and phase out single-use plastic. Another key example is a hilly state, which is Himachal Pradesh, north of India, and again was troubled by the tourist inflow and the plastic generated by tourists. So one key, if we see a very unique concept that they've come up with is a buyback, a non-recyclable plastic, because, though PET bottles and some of the valuable plastic material was being collected by informal sector and getting recycled, The smaller ones or non-recyclable ones were, still creating a lot of pollution. And the government has introduced a minimum support price, so rupees 75 per kg. So it's applicable for, kind of individuals as well as, informal sectors who can bring in plastic and, get 75 rupees per kg. So that's an interesting concept. There's another concept of garbage cafe where, this is started in one of the central India states and is also in the capital city now in Delhi, where you can bring plastic waste and get a meal. So it's basically you get, it's mainly for the informal sector that you can, collect any plastic and bring in here and exchange it. Also, one school, in area in Assam, actually 2 schools have taken these initiatives, a little different. One where you can bring in plastic waste and that's your fees. That's the only way you can pay your fees, school fees. And another one where if you have to take admission, that you have to every month you have to collect certain amount of plastic. So it's basically to kind of create awareness as well as ensure that there's no littering happening in this, these spots. So some of the key learnings I would say from some of these case study is one big important element which is important is the administrative initiative and support. In most cases, single-use plastic ban have not worked if there is no support from the local government. So local municipality, local administration has to support initiative or has to be charged up about these bans being implemented. Consultation with stakeholders, including their viewpoints, that is another point which has worked in some of the places where it is working, including citizens. Enforcement is obviously key. But 2 other important bit is support to the alternates and public procurement. So in a lot of these places, whether it was Sikkim or Himachal, there's been also, the government bodies have been the pioneer or have initiated that in their meetings, in their programs, there will be no plastic. So I think that has become a big, change as well, and that changes public procurement.
Miss Pity, yeah.
Yeah. This is the last slide. Yeah.
Okay, the last slide. Yeah, could you please keep it for a while, because I would like to invite the speaker from Malaysia to speak about.
Yeah, just 15 seconds. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, and then we will come back to you. Yeah,
Sure.
during question and answer.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, thank you. Some of the challenges which we've seen in some of the single-use plastic ban not working, low awareness or the awareness not leading to behavior change, availability of alternates have been a big bottleneck. How industries, because in many cases industries have protested these bans and got it reversed, so that's a key kind of bottleneck. Enforcement and also loopholes like allowing compostable plastic, because there's no testing for compostable plastic. So how does one test whether it's compostable or not? So that is a big loophole. And also a selection of the single-use items which have been banned. So whether they've been, kind of evaluated on a parameter of utility versus environment impact. So that's something which is a big challenge. Yeah, that's it. That was my last slide. Thank you. And sorry for, kind of overshooting it a little bit.
Yeah, thank you very much, PT. We come back to you for sure. Yeah, and now I would like to invite our speaker from Shah Alam, to speak about the case study, from Malaysia, Shah Alam provinces, that introduce the reuse, packaging as a service. Yeah, Mr. Daniel To, could you come in and share your slide, please?
Sure, thank you. Give me a moment.
You have 15 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Daniel. I'm from Malaysia, and I am a venture builder with NDU. So what we'd like to share with you today is the pilot learnings we have from working on the CAPC project together with GIZ and the Municipal Council of Shah Alam. So what I'll be doing is I'll be walking you through a bit about our approach at NDU, and then our work with our reusable food container pilot, and also what we've learned about municipalities. so that you have a bit of context on what we're working on. So essentially, NView, we're what we call a social venture building studio. So what we do is we build ventures with the idea of solving social and environmental issues. And although we have a global presence here in Southeast Asia, particularly in Indonesia and Malaysia, we focus on plastic reduction. And our approach to this is through our program, which we call the Zero Waste Living Lab. And the intention of that is to reduce plastic pollution by creating reuse business models, specifically at the reuse part of the chain. We do this by attempting to replace high volume and hard to recycle single-use packaging. So you can think about things like sachets, styrofoam, takeout packages, diapers. And this started back in Indonesia in 2019, which is one of the largest leakage points of plastics into the ocean. So in Indonesia, we launched 6 ventures with the intention of using them to reduce plastic directly. So overall, our approach is unique in the sense that we apply a more entrepreneurial or venture approach by ideating on particular concepts on different identified problem statements. And then what we try then is to pilot and achieve a certain concept, which we can then replicate and scale across different countries, municipalities, and so on and so forth. Which then brings us to Malaysia, where we are now running a pilot for what we call Tupperware, which is Malaysia's first reusable food container service. So if you're wondering what Tapau means, it's the local term for takeaway. So online food delivery is huge here in Malaysia, particularly so during the pandemic. So we've seen a 46% increase over the last 2 years alone. And Malaysia has what we call a tapau culture, where people really do love their takeaways. And that is one of the biggest waste streams here in the country. And we are also per capita one of the largest consumers of plastic in Southeast Asia. So to maybe contextualize that as well, a bit of a more personal note, like prior to my stint at NView back in early 2021, like GrabFood, which is our equivalent of Uber Eats or Deliveroo, sends us a year in recap of how much you ordered. And in 2021, I think I ordered 267 times on GrabFood, which is a ridiculous amount of plastic. And what's even more surprising is I'm not even in the top 30% of users. So you can imagine how large this segment is and how much waste is actually being generated. Which then leads us to what we're trying to do here with Tupperware. So the idea is that we want to make sustainability easy, because what we find in the consumer consciousness of Malaysians is that everything is about convenience. We perceive plastic single use as convenient. And if we want to move the needle on that, we would need to be able to hence make it equally as easy. If not, it needs to come with added benefit. So how it works is fairly straightforward, like the other systems that have already been covered. So users would register, be a Tupperware member, and then they could order online or at the store, where they would receive a Tupperware ID that's unique to them that they can input. And then they would receive their meals in our containers, and then they can simply return them within a stipulated time. And we do not charge users at the moment, because we are still in our inception phase and learning about what would it take to get there. So right now we are partnered with one restaurant called Spargo Eats. So they're already quite a sustainability conscious brand. They are also Muslim friendly, because Malaysia is a Muslim dominant country, where they make up about 70% of our population here. So we don't work with restaurants that serve pork at the moment for reasons, cultural reasons. And since we've launched in-store takeaways at Spargo Eats, and we're also looking to move to online deliveries, we do provide it, but the uptake has not been particularly high for delivery service providers just yet. So far, we have an 80% return rate, which is promising. And we realized that it is only the most loyal customers of Spargo Eats that register for Tupperware to begin with. I think there is a certain trust barrier that we need to cross as a brand, because what we realize with people who either walk in and are unfamiliar or people that we try to acquire online is that they have a lot of questions. And it's very hard to satisfy them in a way that makes them want to actually use the container. But these concerns typically revolve around hygiene, whether these containers might be contaminated with non-halal components, even though we are in a restaurant that strictly does not support, amongst other things. And 98% of use is actually from people who come to the store to take away. But what we find is that there are certain benefits we provide to users beyond the environmental aspect, although that is the main component, which is that we actually do help users save time, where for bringing your own container, there is a certain wait duration, which can take between 10 to 20 minutes. But with Tupperware, you can kind of simulate the same convenience of an online order for pickup, which consumers like. So as for our container, it's a silicone grade, food grade container. Although we find that it is a good balance of all the traits that you would need. It is durable, it's sustainable enough to last, theoretically at least, up to 200 uses. It's space efficient in the sense that it's collapsible, it's affordable, so our deposits remain low, because we also find that hefty deposits are a big barrier for customer adoption. It's enough to keep food warm and insulated, and customers generally understand how it works intuitively in terms of like collapsing it, opening it, and what to do and not to do with it. And I think one big component as well that we are working on is setting up return logistics. So we want to make it as easy as possible for people to return their containers. So we are now setting up what we call like Loop Food Points in collaboration with a brand called Loop Foods that runs Spargo Eats in different parts of a different municipality that's not Shah Alam, but it's smaller and denser as a proof of concept. So right now we have 2, but we are expecting a total of 6. And right now this is pushed mainly by private parties, but we also hope to be able to replicate this into Shah Alam where we have a stronger relationship. Which then brings us to the municipality of Shah Alam. So it is quite, I would call it a beautiful challenge to work there because it is large. It is the 6th largest municipality in all of Malaysia, with a population that's growing up to 750,000 people. It's mostly urban, I would say, but it is also very diverse. So the cultural spread of affluent to less affluent and different cultural religious groups also exist, which leaves a lot to be accounted for, which would also affect the strategy that we take. So the key learning that we have so far is that Malaysia actually does have a roadmap towards zero single-use plastics that was established back in 2018. And it is powerful, it's ambitious, but it's really the stakeholders at the municipal level that drive this. So Shah Alam is one of the few municipal councils that actually do voluntary reviews for the SDGs. They also have a strategic framework for what are the specific trusts that they like. And you can actually look up their report and you would see that they do have certain trusts when it comes to zero waste and also reducing plastic. And we really do think that this makes a big difference because not every municipal council does this in particular. And it's also where a federal government might have a great ambition, but it's really, again, down to the people on the ground to want to push this. And we see this where at the advent of the pandemic, so the state of Selangor actually was in the middle of implementing a plastic ban. But when COVID arrived, this was something that has severely been reversed, a lot of it due to economic and pressures brought about by the pandemic. So these are some pictures I took recently at some restaurants, where you can see that they are transitioning back from paper to plastic. And when asked why, it has a lot to do with the fact that they perceive plastic as more hygienic and it's cheaper. And what's interesting is that when speaking to different members of municipal councils, they would say that there is some pressure where they feel that if they continue the ban, they might jeopardize the livelihoods of restaurants in the sense that they bring up the price of packaging. So this is really a catch-22 type of situation. And I do think municipalities have a role either to subsidize or remain steadfast in enforcing this plastic ban, but in a way that still protects restaurants and business owners. And that also brings us to what's special about Shah Alam, where I think Shah Alam shows great relationships with their stakeholders on the ground, particularly their communities. And that's key in selecting a location for us to operate. Like I mentioned, Shah Alam is actually separated by big sub-districts, some as far as 20 kilometers away from one another. And every community has distinct features. So whether it's a Muslim majority or it might be a Malaysian Chinese majority, and they all have different cultural instincts, I would say, when it comes to working with reusables. So the Shah Alam Council, what we're doing with them now is working closely to select where we would have the highest adoption rate at first to prove that this is indeed a workable model. And what we noticed as well is that municipal councils play a big role in boosting your early adopters, where perhaps close to a year ago when we first went on site to communicate with communities, when we went in and saying that, hey, we are trying to set up a reusable system, most community members wouldn't really be engaged with you. But if you walk in together with a municipal council member, it really changes the tone of the conversation. And it makes it a lot easier to organize as well. I think the last point as well is that municipal councils can do a lot in terms of incentivizing or disincentivizing restaurants when it comes to adopting reusables and leaving plastic behind. So small things that the Shah Alam Council is exploring as well is giving certain exemptions to license renewals for green merchants, although that is still something that is in the talks and would still require some time at the policy level to implement. And then that brings us to what's next. So for Tupperware, it's also to build a business case. So our first restaurant, which is Spargo Eats, has agreed to start paying on a pay-per-use basis. But what we realize is that this would require huge volumes to actually be sustainable. So we are looking at other use cases, whether it be canteens or even on a subscription basis, something similar to some other brands like Recircle that you might have heard of. And we're also looking at onboarding more restaurants, because right now we have a sample size of 1. And as we move into Shah Alam, where we are garnering interest in our first sub-district, then we would be able to strengthen our proposition by working with them. And at the end, where we recognize that most of the waste is actually in the delivery sector, as known by my 267 orders, we would need to go into the open market, where we would need to be able to cater for those users. And that is it from me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Yeah, it is so interesting. And yeah, you bring us to like the tour to Shah Alam municipalities and yeah, show us the reality that it happened already. Yeah, it's very inspiring. And I think that Thailand and Indonesia, yeah, can do the same. Thank you very much. Yeah, and then yeah, next, yeah, I would like to invite you, yeah, the participant to help us to rate the ways we organize this dialogue series. Yeah, I put the survey form, yeah, into the chat box. Yeah, if you have time, yeah, please spend a little bit of your time, yeah, a few minutes, yeah, to answer some of the questions. Yeah, please scan to this QR code or you click to the link that we put on the chat box. Yes, and after that, yeah, I would like to invite our speaker to answer some of the questions. Yeah, and the first question is going to Miss Preeti from India. Yeah, this question is in terms of the experience in India with this regard and what could the potential solution. Yeah, it means in terms of the hygiene issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, especially when we are talking about, the pandemic period, and that's the reason why the plastic came back in, large way during last 2 years, is because of this whole hygiene issue as well. So yes, it's a big concern, which is, kind of one of the barriers why plastic or disposable items continue to be used. But I think it's also about kind of changing the mindset, because again, the plastic could be also unhygienic in many ways, because a lot of plastic gets reused as well. It's not always kind of just thrown away. But I think a lot of single-use items which are being banned currently are being replaced by items which are again disposable, and not really all the time, kind of reusable. So yes, in certain, usage, I think there will be items which will be disposable, may not be plastic. And in certain items, I think we will need to see how it's implemented and how hygiene is taken care. But yes, it's a concern. I would agree to that.
Okay. Yeah, this is like always the question in terms of the hygiene. Okay, the next question is, yeah. Okay, in terms of the alternatives, yeah, since we have like measures like ban single-use plastic, yeah, any single-use packaging materials can be introduced as like an alternative to citizens.
So yes, as I said, there is a lot of alternate material which are now being promoted. So whether as I said, there is obviously, when we're looking at an item like straws, the bamboo or the steel or the paper. So there are alternates which are being supported. Whether we're talking about polythene bags, we have jute and cloth. Yes, there will be an economic shift, and it will take some time to readjust to that. But these, alternates are being offered. So I think a big criteria when the national single-use plastic ban items were selected, which comes into force, as I said, in July 2022. I think one key element in that was whether there is alternate for that, whether there are alternates available for that. So I think that was one big criteria for selection. So some of the items which were critical but didn't have alternates, they've not been at this point listed in that. But yes, most of the items which are now there have alternates.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. And I see very interesting point, yeah, from your presentation. Yeah, in India, one of the cities use the bottle ATM. Yeah, this is very innovative. Yeah, thank you very much. And the next question, okay, yeah, this is from Kun Pimpirat. Yeah, this is in terms of the question go to Daniel's, the single-use packaging model, business model. How you are dealing with the hygienic issues? Yeah, again, the hygiene issues during the pandemic situation. Yeah, since most of the shops are not welcoming the reusable packaging.
Yeah,
Which is
that's
the situation in Thailand.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I wish I had a very strong answer. But I think a lot of it has to do with really educating shops and consumers as well. And of course, having very robust cleaning methods as well that can assure them that it is hygienic. I think to be able to ever reach that standard requires quite a bit of investment, whether it be in your facility, dishwasher, the type of like detergent, and I think transparency helps a lot. But to be but I think ultimately it is the attitude of consumers that matter as well in terms of the knowledge around like what does it mean to be hygienic in that sense.
It's about the perception, consumer perception.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. And the next question, yeah, is from Kun. Yeah, I think this question is go to you, Daniel. Assuming the used containers and are returned uncleaned at drop points, what if the consumers return clean containers? Will they get a bonus in return as an incentive?
Yeah, I think that would be quite a great idea. But I think the challenge with that is quite difficult to track, because it would enter a box which might mix with different containers of different states, and also restaurants would then need to declare. So right now, the simple answer is no. There's no incentives being provided. What we do is that we tell our consumers to rinse and return. So the idea is that they would at least clean out the containers and give it a quick wash, and then we would rewash it. And I think the other thing is also to ensure, when we talk about hygiene, I think even for us, right, like it's very difficult to trust the consumer to clean the container fully, because when you deal with food, it's quite a temperamental thing when it comes to cleanliness. As for the second question, in terms of the price comparison, so right now the single-use plastic container is about 20 cents ringgit if it's plastic, which is about $5 US dollars. 5 cents US dollars, sorry. Yeah. But what we find is that if so that's really hard to beat. I think we will never be able to compete with that price point. But what we can compete with is compostables. So compostables are about 3 to 4 times the price of single-use plastic. And you'd be surprised that in more affluent areas, most restaurants are shifting to that. So we find an opportunity there for early adoption. But of course, like that kind of raises the question still, like how do we take on plastic? Yeah.
Okay, so let's say that price cannot be complete, but it can compete in terms of the environmental benefit.
Yes, at least for the moment, so we are able to innovate something special that might drive prices down.
Yeah. Okay, and we are working with the first adopter that believe that we can change the world. Okay, the next question is, okay, maybe we don't have any more questions. Okay, last question. Is Enreuse also conducting awareness campaigns, or who is in charge of promotion of reusable to consumers in the city of Shah Alam?
Right. So right now, Enview isn't doing direct interventions when it comes to raising awareness, because most of our focus is in setting up the operational elements for things like Tupperware. But a lot of the awareness is actually driven by brands, like small businesses. So I think a lot of communities, actually, you can kind of identify the sustainable communities when a zero waste store appears in an area. And typically those stores become very big drivers of education in the area. And of course, the municipal council is to their, to their applause for them, because they also conduct a lot of programs for raising awareness. Although when it comes to reuse in particular, I think that is still something that's fairly new to Shah Alam as well. A lot of it is heavily in recycling, composting. But I think it is much easier to preach to the converted, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Just to add on, Cherry, I'm Jaya, the advisor for Malaysia. So we also have a strong commitment from Shah Alam Local Council, where they will be supporting the awareness campaigns, where they will try to advocate and also use their social media and also billboards to promote Tupperware. So that was agreed in our last discussions as well. And also, yes, we have a good scope of awareness building for this as well in our work plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Jaya, for emphasizing this. Yeah, we can see that the municipalities, civil servants can do a lot, in terms of like build up ecosystem and support the startup and bring innovation, in order to reduce the single-use plastic. And I think today, we have like almost out of the time, for the 2 hours dialogue series. And I would like to invite everyone, the participant, to to download the PowerPoint, from the today sessions. You can use the password presentations 2022, as the password. And I would like to thank you again, our speakers, from Shah Alam, from Enreuse, from City of Freiburg and the Zero Waste, and also from India, British. Thank you very much, for your presentation. And I hope that you can also join us the community of practice And I would like to invite again the participant to join us, the community of practice, by go to our website, Twin Tech Knowledge Hub. Yeah, thank you very much.